For the Lord's Prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. And pray thee, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. We salute the flag, and pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Councilor Donahue.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Mayor Martin.
Here.
Councilor Armin Mercia.
Here.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Here.
Councilor Milanazzo.
Here.
Councilor Ramirez.
Here.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
Councilor Caulfield.
Here.
9 present.
Thank you. Before we start the agenda, we do want to recognize, I'm sorry it's not printed on the agenda, but this is National Salvation Army Week, and we do have a proclamation that I would like to read and present to Captain Smith from the Salvation Army here in Lowell. As we all know, the Salvation Army does a tremendous job serving people in need here in the city, and this is a very worthwhile endeavor. Whereas a love of God and desire to help others is the motivation behind men and women of the Salvation Army, which provides spiritual counseling and basic human necessities to the needy and hurting on a daily basis. And whereas the Salvation Army's programs and services help the citizens live meaningful and productive lives and also stand as a symbol of compassion, the Salvation Army has served Lowell residents since 1884. Whereas the Salvation Army provides its services to all people in need of assistance regardless of race, color, creed, gender, or age. Now I, therefore, William F. Martin, Jr., Mayor of the City of Lowell, do hereby proclaim the week of May 14th through 2006 as National Salvation Army Week, and urge all citizens to join me in honoring the dedicated officers, employees, and volunteers of the Salvation Army who touch the lives of many in need in our community. I present this to Captain Richard Smith, if you'd please come forward. Thanks.
Well, Mayor Martin and fellow councilmen and women, thank you very much for all your support that you give to the Salvation Army, because we could not do what we do without the support of the leadership of this city, as well as the community of this city, which is, we are just very grateful for everyone's support that they give us. I take this time to introduce Kevin Willett, who is the chairman of our advisory board, and we have other members here with us that represent our advisory board, and we will continue to support this city in every way that we can. Currently, we have a bunch of canteens in Haverhill and in Peabody. As you know, the floods are really hurting those communities. And so we have many canteens already in place, and we have one coming at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning that will be here to assist the city of Lowell. We got with the Red Cross this morning and with the emergency management, and we're going to be serving the policemen of Lowell and the National Guard that are posted throughout the city. So we'll be serving hot meals and drinks to those guys as well. So we're looking forward to doing that and continuing to support our city. We will also be working with the Red Cross in the Senior Center as well, providing some volunteers there. If you look at the card or the brochure in front of you, you'll see my card, and feel free to call me at any time if I can assist any one of you, and I would be, consider it a privilege to serve you in any way that I can. But if you notice the holiday assistance, you'll see some wonderful numbers there. Because of the support of this city, we're able to help many people throughout the Christmas and Thanksgiving, and throughout the year you can see that we had serviced 35,448 people in this city through 2005. So we look forward to 2006 and continuing to support this community as much as we can. And I'm grateful to the city manager Cox for giving us the Smith Baker Center for our Christmas castle this year. And we had another successful Christmas this year helping this community, and we look forward to another one again this year. So thank you very much for your support. We appreciate it, and we love serving this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. We have for approval the minutes of the May 9th meeting.
So moved.
Moved to approve by Councilor Rita Mercia, seconded by Councilor Ramirez. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion is adopted. Before we get to the city manager's portion of the agenda, I thought it would be appropriate for the city manager to provide a brief update as to the major flooding event we've had in the city over the last few days, and inform the council and the public as to what's occurred here in the last couple of days. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, councilors, ladies and gentlemen. As you may or may not have noticed, the last couple of days have been quite challenging for the city of Lowell. I want to begin by thanking many city employees. And I don't want to name them all, because I can't name them all, but certainly T.J. McCarthy went down to the Emergency Operations Center sometime Sunday afternoon and has been there basically since. And he's not alone. There are other people, clearly the police department, fire department, Sue LeMay from the assessor's office, DPW, water, sewer. I don't want to leave anybody out. Health, all were there participating in what was a most challenging 2 or 3 day period. We could not have survived the way we have survived if it were not for the dedication of all these people, and also for the cooperation of many city residents who participated and helped neighbors in some of those low-lying areas, and really kept the spirit of the city alive, I think, in many ways. Clearly, this is the worst storm we've had in 70 years. The Merrimack River has not, I think it's the 3rd highest on record, and yet through it all, our city services continue to function. I know there was a lot of talk yesterday. There was false rumors that we were going to shut down the water supply in the city. That was never going to happen. It almost happened by an act of God, because the water department almost was flooded out on its own. Luckily, that didn't happen. Luckily, the services did not shut down. The sewer, wastewater continued to operate. The water department continued to operate. And clearly, there are challenges ahead, both in cleanup, damage assessment, and the like. We've also already been in touch with MEMA and FEMA, and we'll be applying for any state and federal monies that are available. But the most important thing is I want to thank all the city employees for their hard work, their unbelievable effort, and I also want to thank, again, the city residents who have facing a difficult couple of days and face many difficult days ahead, and thank them for their cooperation. I also want to point out that the website apparently had some 13,000 hits yesterday of people calling to see what roads were open, those types of things. So basic information that people needed to get right away, and they were able to get it. So I think we've gone through a crisis. I think we've come out not so bad, not as bad as it certainly could have been. And I want to thank everybody involved, and now the second phase begins. But thank you to everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I would also, too, like to thank all of the various city employees that participated in this effort, starting with Mr. McCarthy, who really spearheaded the whole thing from early Sunday afternoon. It was really an awesome challenge, but very pleasant to see so many people working together, both residents and employees. As the manager pointed out, the Emergency Operations Center functioned very well, with constant updates on the website, and the people on the other end of those phones, both city employees and residents, really answered the call, did themselves proud and did the city proud. And I know the members of the council, manager, and I are certainly very grateful for their efforts. There are challenges ahead of us. We do have to aid in the assistance of cleanup and getting some people who were displaced back into their homes, and that is going to be a significant challenge. I know there were teams meeting today to start the coordination of that effort, and so there is much work to be done, but certainly over the last few days, the city performed very well, and I was very proud to watch it in action. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I would like to echo your sentiments, and I know my colleagues all feel the same. Mr. Manager, the employees went above and beyond. They rose to the occasion. I witnessed the fire department taking people out of their homes in boats. I was with Al Tebow yesterday morning, I didn't see, I couldn't believe under so much pressure how calm and cool, professional he was with Tom Bellegarde. Everyone that I was in contact, the fire department, police department, Dan LaHiff from the water utility, Mark Young from wastewater, everyone just rose to the occasion and dealt with a horrific catastrophe in our city. The entire Merrimack Valley has been affected by this flood. I had the pleasure of calling the emergency center. Matter of fact, I talked to Chief Bill DeRosa at 5:45 this evening. Electrical power had been diminished on one of the streets in the city. Immediately, they got a hold of Mass Electric and restored that power. So everyone, from the manager's office down, an excellent job. And T.J. McCarthy, you believe me, yeoman service to the people of the city. And as the mayor pointed out, the residents also rose to the occasion throughout the entire city. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a communication from the city manager concerning the resignation of James Rivard from the Water Board. Dear Manager Cox, it has been an honor and privilege to serve the City of Lowell as a member of the Water Board for the past 5 years. The Water Board is one of the important initiatives supported by your administration and the City Council to provide assistance to residents of the City of Lowell. Recently, I have found it increasingly difficult to attend meetings due to other personal and professional commitments, and have been unable to attend several recent meetings. Fortunately, I anticipate these commitments will continue. Therefore, I wish to submit my resignation to the Lowell Water Board. I'd like to extend my sincerest appreciation to you and the City Council for giving me the opportunity to serve the City of Lowell. Motion to accept and place the matter on file by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager, I didn't even know we had a water board. So I would like to know, not right now, because I don't know if you can answer the question, but I'd like just some idea as to what is the function of the water board. What do they meet on the rates? I don't know. I know we had a lot of water lately, but it's so much water is coming up. I just like to get a little information about.
I can give you a brief information now. We can give you more information, Councilor. I didn't know there was a water board either, but there is one. And what they basically do is meet on a regular basis. I don't know how often they meet, but maybe once a month or twice a month. And basically, people have complaints with their water bill.
Oh,
that's
water
where they
bills.
go. So it's a very strictly volunteer board. There are no payments or anything like that. It's just volunteer, and they try to help people with their water bills. When people have a water bill they think is out of whack, that's where they go. And it's a I don't know if it's a 3 or 5 member board, but
Okay, that's nice to know, because sometimes I do have calls from people that are questioning their water meter, and they think that it's
Right.
broke or whatever. Had I known there was a water board, I would have, referred them to it. So if you could just give this council a list of who the members are and when their meeting is, and how can we get a hold of the number to get a hold of them? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? The matter is accepted and the motion is approved. We have 2 requests for out-of-state travel from the police department. Any objection to taking them both together? Okay, we'll consider them both together. Is there a motion to approve by Councilor Donahue, seconded by Councilor Milonazo? Roll call, please.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Armin Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Ramirez?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield?
Yes.
9 yeas.
That matter is approved. The next matter is an order pursuant to Chapter 13 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 13.6 thereof, entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations. Temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. This is a fairly lengthy vote. Is there a motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Eileen Donahue? This concerns no parking signs on Fleming Street, Westchester Street, and Campbell Drive. Motion to waive the full reading is approved. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That matter is approved. Second reading by title, an order pursuant to Chapter 13 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 13(6) thereof, entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations. Temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days.
Move for approval.
Motion approved by Councilor Caulfield, seconded by Councilor Broderick. Roll call, please.
Counselor Donahue?
Yes.
Counselor Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Counselor Arman Mercia?
Yes.
Counselor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Counselor Milonazo?
Yes.
Counselor Ramirez? Yes. Counselor Broderick?
Yes.
Counselor Caulfield?
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next item is a vote declaring certain City of Lowell supplies surplus and donating the same to community teamwork. Whereas there is no present proposed use for municipal purposes of a 1974 International Truck, vehicle identification number V1366DHA11134, also known as the Cool Mobile, owned by the City of Lowell. And whereas Community Teamwork, Inc. desires to obtain said Cool Mobile from the city for use for their new Artship Enterprise project, and whereas Community Teamwork has tax-exempt status under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code, now therefore the City Council of the City of Lowell hereby declares said 1974 International Truck vehicle ID number V1366DHA11134, also known as the Cool Mobile, surplus, and donates the same to the Community Teamwork, Inc. for their use in their new Artship Enterprise project. Second reading by title, declaring certain City of Lowell supplies surplus and donating the same to Community Teamwork. Councilor Milonazo.
I don't know if we need to note this, but Councilor Rita Mercier and I both serve on Community Teamwork's Board of Directors, and I don't know if she plans to drive the Cool Mobile, but I figured we should get into the minutes that we're actually on the board.
Just make that.
I would think it's sufficient to make that declaration. There's no financial interest.
Just to clear on the board.
Any questions? Okay, roll call.
Counselor Donahue?
Yes.
Counselor Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Counselor Arman Mercia?
Yes.
Counselor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Counselor Milonazo?
Yes.
Counselor Ramirez?
Yes.
Counselor Broderick?
Yes.
Counselor Caulfield?
Yes.
9 yeas.
Any subcommittee reports? Councilor Rita Mercia.
Mr. Mayor, if I could at this time suspend the rules to bring in a motion that just came before us at the request of the city clerk regarding a 7-year-old boy, a child who has been severely disabled. I'd just like to make a motion for a 60-day trial. So could
Okay.
I suspend the rules to do that at this time?
To add a handicap parking space?
For a handicap parking space for a 60-day
Okay,
trial.
motion to suspend the rules by Councilor Rita Mercia, seconded by Councilor Milonazo. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The rules are suspended. Councilor Rita Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Spalding Rehab representative called the city clerk's office today and said that a 7-year-old child has been severely disabled as a result of an auto accident and is returning home. So there is a request out there for the city council to have the city manager draw the proper vote to place a handicap parking sign at 400 Gorham Street, and that would be for a 60-day trial if we could do that.
Okay, motion to approve by Councilor Rita Mercia, seconded by Councilor Caulfield. Roll call, please.
Counselor Donahue?
Yes.
Counselor Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Counselor Arman Mercia?
Yes.
Counselor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Counselor Milonazo?
Yes.
Counselor Ramirez?
Yes.
Counselor Broderick?
Yes.
Counselor Caulfield?
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you.
Okay, that matter is approved. Subcommittee reports. Councilor Donahue.
Thank you. The Public Safety Subcommittee had a meeting this evening in follow-up of a prior meeting. There were items that we had requested reports on, and we were provided those tonight. The first had to do with the Police Academy, Training Academy. The Academy is expected to have enrolled for this summer approximately 70 or somewhere in the mid-70s of officers, 6 of whom will be from the city of Lowell at any rate. And the issue in our last meeting was the start date, whether it starts in June or some later date. Councilor Elliott had made a motion asking for the police department to inquire of the towns and cities that are sending officers to the academy as to whether there was an issue in terms of the date. We did get a report on our desk last week saying that the overwhelmingly the departments who are sending cadets to the academy would like it to start in June for a variety of reasons, including that they're relying on the availability of new officers for the holiday season, the requirements for outdoor training, and particularly in firearms certification, is more appropriate prior to the start of winter weather. And if the start dates were later, any unforeseen delays, such as snow emergencies, could potentially cause the academy to run into Middlesex Community College's second semester, causing scheduling problems for the college. The officers in question, this is in the budget because these are replacing officers who have either retired or what have you, at the tune of $517 a week. So that was the report. They did go back and check with the departments. The benefit of the academy, of course, is that we don't pay to train our own officers because, nor does the academy cost money. It doesn't, in terms of having it here, cost the city money. But we do have the benefit of having the officers trained. So the subcommittee is recommending starting the academy June 5th, given that the money is in the current budget. To do that. Certainly if there was an ability to save money for free cash and it didn't make any difference, then that might be a route to go. But that was the recommendation, the unanimous recommendation of the subcommittee and those in attendance. The second report we got was on the 9/11 Center, as we had discussed previously, that there's significant problems with the floor there that needs repair, and it's been a very difficult problem to solve. There have been a number of employees injured, but given the age of the floor, the condition, and the fact that the center has to run for 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, it's very difficult to come up with a solution. However, the Department of Public Works has been in meetings together in conjunction with Mr. McCarthy and the police department, and they expect to come up with some more specific numbers in the next couple of weeks. But there are signs of progress on solving this problem. There's an interim measure that presumably will be more cost effective than what we had previously discussed. And it is repairing half the floor and then the other half at a separate time. Also purchasing 2 new stations to expand the area, so it gives a little more space to the center. So that's a report as far as that report of progress. And one of the recommendations made from the vendors that we enter into a vendor maintenance agreement because of the nature of the floor and computer floors and so forth. So those 2 issues were taken up. In addition to that, because of the homicides that we've had, as well as the emergency of the flooding, we had discussion with the chief of police concerning where do we stand on the overtime budget at this time of year. Traditionally, there's issues that we have had to transfer money into the police department, as we did last week for the fire department. I believe we transferred $92,000 last week for overtime, energy costs, and the like. And so we had a discussion, especially because of what's happened in these last few days in terms of overtime, as well as just in the general course of things. We were told that there is a request pending for a transfer, and in particular we asked where does the account stand, and we were told that it's about $15,000 in the account right now for overtime that will not meet the payroll next week. And that a request had been made for $50,000. There's a request in pending for a $50,000 transfer. So there was a motion made to get an update as far as where we stand on that request, Mr. Manager.
Yeah, I did receive a request from the chief, and I was waiting for a balance, which I received, I think, the end of last week as to the trust fund before we went forth on the transfer. But certainly we'll have it in next week. But the request for transfer was in before this situation over the last couple of days.
Oh, yeah. In fact, the request was several weeks ago, so, I mean...
Maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Well, the current situation will require more money, obviously.
Probably.
Because the overtime that's been expended, not just police, but across the board. I mean, there's just the nature of the problem. And hopefully there'll be maybe some federal money,
Hope
some
so.
FEMA money, and maybe some MEMA money that can reimburse the city at some point because of the state of emergency that has existed. But, you know, in terms of I mean, as I said, we did transfer money last week for the fire department. This happens at this time of year on a regular basis. And this is within, the transfers that we're talking about are within the department, not a new money, but rather within the department. So that was the nature of the request, to get a report and see whether that can be taken care of. We didn't know whether there was a transfer on our desk, which apparently there isn't for tonight, so.
No. Again, the reason I didn't go forth on the transfer was I was waiting for the law enforcement trust fund balances, which I received, I think, end of last week. I'm hopeful that maybe we can use some of that money to offset overtime costs. That's a discussion I haven't had with the chief yet, but something I will have with him this week to see if some of that money can be used. That was my idea, and if that's not the case, we'll bring in the full transfer next week. No problem.
What is the balance, do you know, on the law enforcement trust fund?
The balances I saw were around $20,000 on one and around $20,000 on the other.
I didn't think there was that much left in
That's what I
that
received, I
account.
think.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly, but I think it was around 20 each. That's my
So
recollection.
that's
I'm hopeful if that's the question, if that's the case, we can use that to offset whatever drug overtime was used this year. We could clearly use that money. That's what I'm hoping to do.
That's the report of progress, and I guess it would take some action by the council to accept the report.
Okay. Are there recommendations to be adopted, or is it all just report of progress? Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would imagine that the chief and his staff is keeping records of the overtime pertaining to the flood, so we can apply for the federal funding and things of that nature. And I agree with you, Mr. Manager. If we can use some of that law enforcement trust fund, we certainly should be able to use it.
Okay. Motion to adopt the recommendations of the subcommittee and accept the report as a report of progress by Councilor Donahue, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion is adopted. Any further subcommittee reports? Okay. The next item under petitions has been a request to delay action for 1 week by the petitioner. I guess they had a plan to appear and address the council tonight and have asked to address that next week. Councilor Donahue.
On that petition, can we get a report from the law department what this is all about in advance? I don't mean a verbal report tonight, but I'm completely unfamiliar with what that case is, and I don't know why it's coming to the council. So if we can be given something in our packet about it, that would be helpful.
Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also, I think this was addressed, not this particular case, but the issue of indemnification back in the fall, and I thought we were going to try and put together, or maybe the union was, some type of indemnification policy. I don't know if we have something in place, if we could, we don't yet. Because I assume that's what it has to do with a lawsuit that's probably close to settling or time to pay up and to looking for indemnification. So it's it's a judgment that, so they must be looking for
We can
attorneys.
get you a full report. I'm uncomfortable talking about it bits and pieces, but we'll get you a full report for next week.
Thank you.
Okay, motion to delay action at the request of the petitioner for 1 week by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Armin Mercier. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion is adopted. We can go to the public hearings. There are a public hearing for National Grid petition for a pole location on Willie Street and a pole location on Quinby Ave. We'll open the public hearing for anybody wishing to speak in favor. Anybody wishing to speak in favor, just give us your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name's Dave Aguirre, and I'm representing National Grid. National Grid tonight is asking for permission to install 2 poles, one pole on Willie Street and one pole on Quimbley Ave. The pole on Quimbley Ave is safety concerns. We want to move it over to the other side. And the pole on Willie Street is to serve the new shopping strip mall that's going to be on Willie Street.
Okay, anybody else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? That portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? That portion of the public hearing is closed. This is the wish of the council.
Move approval.
Refer to the
Motion
wire
to,
inspector.
Refer to the wire inspector.
Okay, motion to refer to the wire inspector by Councilor Armin Mercia, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The matter is so referred. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Donahue.
If I could say, after our meeting last week when National Grid and gentleman was here saying that they'd get right on the repairs, I have seen, I can attest to a truck on Clitheroe Street right behind my house that they were out there, and they did fix the light, so there's, you know, we always
reprieve.
criticize, so, and I've seen the truck around, so, you know.
If I may,
Councilor Armin
I'd like
Mercia.
to concur with that. I've seen many trucks around. Pawtucket was just inundated with all sorts of trucks doing something on lights and poles, so the message got very clear, and we appreciate you bringing that message forward, because they have been working in this city, and we just got to keep their feet to the fire.
And
Councilor Rita Mercia.
I'd like to thank John Upham for coming before the council. He said that he'd worked very well with us, and I guess he kept his word. Yet he paved the way for a smoother delivery on our part with you.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Go to the motions. The first motion is by Councilor Rita Mercia. The City Council requests the city manager instruct the law department to draft amended ordinances for Chapter 13 increased rate and changes for parking and parking facilities as recommended in proposal number 1 by Charles County Parking Director, seconded by Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Rita Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this motion is aimed at opening up the discussion as to how we can form a revenue stream and take the burden off the taxpayers and maybe even turn a profit. I'm not saying that I'm presenting this one to you that we're going to have unanimous support. I don't even know if we'll have any support, but it's a start of a discussion, because I completely know how monumental it is and how urgent it is that we have a garage in the jam plan area. I think it's the link that we need there. However, we didn't anticipate a 4.5 increase on top of a 1.7 already. We didn't anticipate that. But I don't think it's warranted to just throw everything away and not have that. So I'm bringing this motion forward because I don't want to hear that it's an unfunded bond, which it is. It is. It's an unfunded bond at this particular point. I'm trying to find ways to be creative so that we don't put it on the backs of the taxpayer. I don't feel that it should be directed to them. If they're not going to use it, they shouldn't pay for it. So having said that and getting to this point, I'm thinking about the recommendations of the parking director, Charles Carney, who said that there's proposal 1 and proposal recommendation 2. I'm offering this one to see if perhaps we could exempt the residents downtown from being a further burden onto them. And the reason I say this is because, and it's not that I care more about residents than I do businesses. From what I understood, I thought this place would be packed with people saying that we're businesses, you're going to run us out of the city. I don't want to do that either. I'm trying to be fair, but with this proposal in place, it's a start to say that, and you know what it said, I don't have to clue you in on the rates, but this would not affect the downtown residents. It's like we said, we're building it, let's lasso them in to get a place downtown, and now that we got them downtown, let's corral them and hold them hostage. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Having said that, I know you have businesses downtown, and I don't want to hurt them either, but I think that they're in a better position that they can pay. There are some that are screaming the loudest that I checked on them. They don't even have a monthly pass. They don't park down in the garage. But I want to just open this up for discussion because, number one, can we look at the condo garage space with deeded parking in the proposed new garage? Sell the units at Adden Furniture with a parking deed for X number of dollars. So let me just stop right there and say, does Adden Furniture actually need any parking spaces in the garage? Or do they have sufficient where they're going to be? I don't know that. So I think coupled with Councilor Rodney Elliott's motion to get some answers in 2 weeks, maybe I'm asking these questions and we could get answers to that.
I can answer right now. Adden Furniture has no parking.
They don't need our parking garage?
They do need it. They have no parking.
Okay, they do need it. So my question to you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to you, Mr. Manager, is how do they go before the planning board and get permitting? I thought you needed to prove so many parking spots per unit, so how does this happen? How do they get to start building or whatever, I don't know, with saying they need some spots in the garage where we don't even have a garage yet? So how does this happen?
If there's no garage, they won't go forward.
So there won't be any buildings, so...
That's correct.
Okay, so having said that and stopped right there, could we then have a partnership with Adden to offer deed parking spaces per unit? Probably we could. I don't know. Let's see if we could do that. Let's see if the people that really need it are going to pay for it and the taxpayers will not.
Well, what we have done with all the other development downtown is we have made parking available to them in city garages at whatever the rate is, at the prevailing rate. That's what we would do with Adden. Same type of thing.
Well, explore the possibility of why could we not have deeded spots? Because we wouldn't want to be held accountable. We can use their spots in the daytime while they're gone to work. Or
Well, that's what we do now. We don't deed any spots out now. We just say, you know, if you need whatever amount of spots, we will make those available in whatever garage is the nearest that we can accommodate to that building. So that's how we've done it downtown with all the other development.
how many spaces do they need? Do we know?
230
230.
Adden. And then CMAA is what? That's combined, 230 all combined.
Because I want to know about CMAA would be how many?
It'd be the 230 combined, CMAA and Adden.
What about Verizon? Do they need any as
There's a number of, is it 30?
30. Okay, now, having said that as well, can we lease the naming rights to the garage? For example, the First National Bank of Lowell garage. I'm trying to think outside of the box here. I don't
you
want to
are.
burden my taxpayers here.
That's a good idea. Something we have not explored.
That would be a great partnership between a business and the city. About the retail space on the first floor, suppose one of those spaces went to a bank, and maybe they would sponsor leasing their name for the garage and save what the newspaper said in their article on May 11th was about a difference of $70,000. If we didn't raise the parking rates for the downtown pass card residents, we have a deficit here. So if we take a closer look and we make naming rights higher, then nobody's gets hurt in their taxes. There are many options open for discussion. This is just why I'm bringing this motion forward. I remember last week when Chuck Carney said that 75% of all the pass card users are from out of the city, and they are not taxpayers. So I say we can raise the rates for those that come into the city that are using it, but they don't live here. I don't really feel too bad about that. And I want to just say that let's not forget that store employees who park in the garages will be affected with no change in proposal one, number one. There is no charge in the hourly rate up to $5. So if you are a business and you have part-time employees, there's no change for the rate scale for the parking. And if you are making minimum wage, chances are your employee is not springing for a monthly pass for you. If you are a full-time employee, the rate went up 50 cents an hour. I don't find that breaking the bank. I firmly believe that we do need this garage in the jam plan, and we cannot stop discussion. We need to be creative, and that's why I'm bringing this motion. I also asked you about how many spots CMAA and Verizon, you already told me. And I'm thinking that if the garage parking rates for businesses and the result amounted to $120 a year, I know a lot of businesses downtown, banks and attorneys and everything. I don't know why they couldn't afford it, but this is the gist of my motion. Lastly, I'm thinking if we can enforce the ordinances that we have on the books that say don't speed, control loud music, don't park on sidewalks, this in itself will create revenue profit. I'm just offering all these suggestions because I don't want to hear that we're building a garage and we as a council don't care about putting the burden on the taxpayer. I think we all feel awful if we would do that. So that's the gist of this motion. I'm opening it up for discussion.
Yeah. Councilor Broderick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me, I agree with Councilor Mercia that this is something, obviously, we need to discuss. I don't think anybody wants to put this on the taxpayers, and we have some time to figure out a logical plan to increase the revenue to pay for the parking garages. I personally would not support increasing for the non-residents because to me it sends a message that we're closed for business, and I think that in a day and age when we're trying to get more business in, I wouldn't support that. But I do think it's a good attempt to get the ball rolling to discuss other avenues. There's other motions on by councilors this evening that also may raise revenue to help pay for the shortfall for not raising the rates. I think that combination of maybe some of these plans, we'll get there. I'm confident we will get there. I wouldn't have voted for the garage as much as I know we need it. And I think that we keep looking at these, exploring these avenues. We're going to come up with something that will more than pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Milonazo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I received a number of calls and emails since the vote of last week regarding the parking garage and the $4.5 million bond issue. I think we all are in support of the garage. I think it's long overdue for that neighborhood. I think that from the standpoint of putting it on the backs of the taxpayers, that was not my intent. It's not something I certainly would support. However, working for a company that actually has an office in downtown, and we have people that do have pass cards in the garages, I couldn't support putting the burden on the businesses as well. I have heard from a number of businesses that as tenuous as some of the businesses are in the downtown, this might just tip it to the point that they might look at leaving downtown, and I certainly wouldn't want to see that happen. I know that's not Councilor Rita Mercia's intent of the motion at all. She's trying to be creative. I applaud her for getting the discussion back out on in front of the council. Again, I don't know if the planning department has looked at a district improvement finance program, which is something that the state through DHCD has available to economic development districts like this, that maybe we could create a DIF program for that particular neighborhood and provide the gap financing for the $4.5 million. Again, just an idea to bring back to the planning department for some information. But I do think in the end that the master developer, who will be working closely with the city, will be ultimately responsible for paying for that garage, and bring businesses and residences into that neighborhood, I think will ultimately be how this garage gets paid for. So again, I stand by my vote. It was clearly a difficult one because the garage is very expensive, but I think that listening to the residents in that particular neighborhood where they have been waiting for upwards of 20, 25 years, and the city through the manager's office and the planning department, they've been working on this Hamilton Canal District for the last 3 years. I really think it's time to have a little faith in the project and try to move this forward, knowing full well that either through a district improvement finance program or through working with a master developer ultimately chosen, as well as people like Adden Furniture and CMAA and other businesses in that neighborhood, I think we'll be able to pay for this garage. Again, We did make some changes to the parking fines last week, so we have, I think it's an additional $100,000 that we could put toward this. And again, I'm hopeful that it's not an unfunded mandate, if you will, and that we'll be able to find the monies to pay for the $4.5 million. So again, I stand by my vote, and I hope that this does continue to generate some discussion working through the manager's office and the planning department. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think it was a mistake, nor is it a mistake to build a garage in that area. I just think it's a mistake to build a garage at the cost that it's projected. I got some additional information from the auditor this week, and I commend Council Mercier for bringing forth ideas. I think they make a lot of sense, and I filed a motion of similar nature to go to the developers to pay for it, because they're going to be using it. But with all due respect, this discussion should have taken place before the money was spent, before the votes were taken to bond it. So while I agree and empathize with not putting this on the backs of the taxpayers, you got to be straight up with people. It's already on your backs, unless there is another plan that comes through. Raising the parking fees of $100,000, that's one step. I don't know what Councilor Mercier's proposal would generate. I'm sure it would be, some additional funding. But in my opinion, there's a huge gap between what we need to raise and what we have available. The fund balance was the fund balance in '05 was not over $1 million. It's $854,000. The current fund balance is $500,000. Now I understand we're only 3/4 of the way through the fiscal year, and we'll get some additional revenues. But as I look at some of the other revenue streams that are projected in to pay for some of this, remember a 20-year note at 5%, and I don't know what the current rate is. I know the discount rate continues to raise. You're looking at $2.25 million, which is the number that we have been looking at. There's no way we're even coming close to this. So the vote taken is already on the backs of the taxpayer, and I think it's unfortunate, and that's why I voted against it. So selling the rights, that's a great idea. Going to rights to a garage, that's a good idea. I don't disagree, but it should have taken place before we proceeded with this authorization. So that I don't think there's a sound fiscal revenue stream in place to pay for this thing. It's got to go on the tax rate, unfortunately. Again, the Davidson Street lot is going to go away at some point for the new courthouse. We get approximately $90,000 of revenue from that lot in '05, and we've already gotten 70 this year. The first year we put this plan in place, the new parking plan, we have additional money in the bank because we collected $371,000, almost $372,000 in late fees and fines. This year we collected $6,800, which that's understandable. We collected all the back fees from the past. That money's not going to be there in the future. So, my point is, regardless of what we do, it's still going on the rate. There's not a sound plan in place, and I voted for the garage. I voted for the additional 1.75, but that's where I had to put the brakes and say, this is not making any sense. So I would like the manager, in my motion, we can probably take it up now, Mr. Manager. I think it's really been discussed, just to have the manager, sit down with these individuals and have them make a commitment. They want to build 230 units. They need a place to park. Let them pay the $31,000 as part of their project cost. So, those are my statements, and I'm not going to support this tonight because I don't think that we should be building the plan. Not that I don't think it's a good idea to look at some of these items. I think that we should look at naming rights and some of the other ideas that came about. I wish we would have just done it beforehand.
Thank you. Councilor Donahue?
Thank you. I think a lot of what I have to say I've said before in prior meetings, and that is I don't support raising the parking rates, be it for residents or businesses, to cover these costs. But I can assure you, I have heard from many, many people in the downtown. I think the business has a struggle anyway in the downtown. Lots of people do not want to pay to park. Right now, our meters are the same as parking in downtown Boston. You pay 25 cents for a 15-minute period. And that's okay, but it's not cheap to park here in the city, be it at a meter or in the garage. Businesses, I can tell you, are fed up and saying that it's a struggle. And you raise the rates more, the perception is it's too expensive to park downtown, and businesses have said they will leave. So I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's right. I think enough is enough. We did just raise them. We promised them that that would pay for the garage. It's not true. So, you know, I will absolutely not support raising the rates on business. Absolutely not. Nor on the residents in the downtown. I think it's completely unfair. I do think, you know, as has been said, we've now committed ourselves, and we got to figure out how to pay the piper. And there are a lot of ideas being floated around. You know, I think we have to explore each and every one of them, because we've got to come up with the money. It's as simple as that, unless there's some reason that, you know, the garage doesn't go through as proposed. But right now, we're on the hook, and we're on the hook for a lot of money. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the manager, last week when Mr. Carney was here, he was answering some questions about surpluses and so forth that he has in the garage account. And my understanding, and maybe you can clarify this, when he was talking about running a surplus of $1 million, whether it's 800 or $1 million, in fact, though, just so for my own clarification, that $1 million isn't sitting there in the bank. In other words, the city has to use some of that surplus for the budget.
Council, I think Mr. Conley would have to answer that question. I mean,
Well, each year, in other words, when you build the budget, you use some of the money from the parking garage. There's no question about
Correct.
that. All right, so I think, I mean, when he says there's this money from the revenues generated, I mean, that's accurate, except that they don't stay there. And there's, you know, because you need it over here on the city side. If there's a surplus, we've used this surplus. Otherwise, there'd be a few $1 million in the bank there, and there isn't.
we use a portion. We don't use the entire surplus.
Well, yeah, but we use
a portion of the surplus.
Yeah, and how much did you use last year? Do you know?
I think in real cash about 300,000. And then there's another $200,000 that.
Do you have the figure? Or?
Oh, I didn't know you had information. My understanding was we used about 300,000.
Last year was 500,000.
I thought it was about $500,000.
The prior year was 320.
I think that in cash we only used 300,000, and another $200,000 is used towards maintenance of effort for school parking. I think that's how it works.
Our printout says $500,000 transferred out revenue sharing.
Yeah, I thought it was about because I think we had 800,000 or 900,000 that we left a couple of $100,000 because we were talking about how much to, you know, whether it should be an enterprise fund, and when we were setting up the parking garage or parking department, and didn't make it that so that the city could have access if there was a surplus to use for other things, and so. The point is that if there is extra money, I mean, you can't spend it twice. If it's used in the garage and used to pay for the bond, then it's not going to be available over on the other side to defray the cost, you know, for other expenses of the city. So, you know, that was a concern, and I just think if all that money was used, you know, to pay this bond, it may make it a smaller gap, but then you got the gap over here of what we've used to supplant or to supplement the budget on a regular basis. So at any rate, you know, I know there are other motions on tonight, but you know, as far as this goes, to ask the law department to send it to draw up an ordinance for a public hearing to raise the rates on downtown business, I won't support it.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To address what Councilor Donahue was just speaking about, I'd asked Mr. Carney, I believe twice, and I think Councilor Milonazo also, in what he told us last week was that the current account, the cumulative balance, plus the revenue that we're bringing in now, can sustain the $500,000 a year to the general fund that we now pay, and level fund, basically pay for itself into the fiscal year '09. That was one of the reasons why I didn't support a rate change last week, because quite frankly, I don't think we need to raise the rates today. We can find a better plan, and if we do it in 2 years' time, we're still going to be able, the garages will carry themselves, fund the general fund as they have been, and we can now, 4 years out, address the rates if we have to, if there aren't other sources, including increased revenue from the projects that are going to be coming online over there. And that was one of the reasons why I supported the garage, is that it's the catalyst for the economic growth over there. And through you, Mr. Mayor, to the auditor, Mr. Fernandez, do you know what the currently, if at the end of the year there is a balance, or at the end of last fiscal year, if there was a balance in this parking fund?
The last fiscal year was $854,000.
And that was after the transfer to the general fund?
That was after everything.
Okay, so that would be the cumulative balance that I think Mr. Carney was referring to. So the information I got was that we can sustain the funding the general fund as we have and carry through the fiscal year '09, and that we shouldn't have this problem, and nothing should be put on the taxpayers this year or next year, and that we can address these rates and hopefully some other ideas and creative solutions. Thank you.
Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was talking to Ann Barton earlier this week. Could have been last week. 20 years ago, DPD had plans for a garage on Appleton Street or Middlesex Street. Never materialized because people just turned their back on that neighborhood. They've turned their back on that neighborhood for probably 80 years. And is a garage necessary? Is it needed? Yes, absolutely. And I don't think there's 5 councilors jumping for joy with the increase in the cost of building that garage. At least I'm not. The $4.5 million increase is over at the 20-year period of the bond. It's not $4.5 million this fiscal year. It's over 20 years. For a minimum of 10 years, Mr. Mayor, probably even longer, the taxpayers of this city subsidized these parking garages to a tune of $500,000 a year. Simple math, that's $5 million. Probably it was longer than that. The Cox administration brought forward an increase in parking rates. Boy, oh boy, did we hear the hollering. You're increasing the parking rates in the garage. It was 50 cents an hour. Is that so, TJ? Was it 50 cents an hour? Something like that? People just don't like to hear increase, but they want a parking garage. How do you blend the two together? I talked to Matt Coggins last week. If the city charges $8 a square foot for the retail space in the new garage, it'd be $105,000 a year in income and revenue. The construction cost could diminish during the construction of the garage. Do we need this garage? Do we need 900 spaces? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. But if we built the garage for 600 spaces and realized we made a huge mistake, we needed 900, it's going to cost a lot more money. Now, speaking about parking downtown Boston, it is true. The parking meters are 25 cents for 15 minutes. I've paid that myself. But the last parking garage that I parked in Boston, it was $23 for 2 hours. $23. And this was right next to a medical facility. I didn't have a choice. You have to pay it. That's the going rate in Boston. I commend Councilor Mercier for bringing this forward. At least it is creating some dialogue. Should this have been discussed, as Councilor Elliott said, prior to the bond? Maybe so. But it's before us. Now, from what I understand, the motion to increase the rates, it's not going to affect downtown shoppers, people who are shopping downtown, or people who are going to a restaurant, or it's not going to affect residents. It's just going to affect those people who use the garage on an 8-hour basis or probably longer, which will probably be equivalent of $10 a month. So that's what I understand. Is that so, Councilor Mercier? So, did I want to vote for that $4.5 million bond last week? Sometimes you got to bite the bullet. Is it in the best interest of the city that there's a garage going to be built there? Yes. Is it going to create economics and development in that community? Don't build a garage and you won't see nothing there. For 80 years, at least 60 that I can remember, there's been little shops, people trying to survive, just get along to go along, and nothing. That is a diamond in the rough. Jackson Street, Appleton Street, Middle Street, is a diamond in the rough. Sometimes we can't see the forest because of the tree. But if you build that garage, you're going to shine that diamond all the more for developers. And I will support the motion. Thank you.
Councilor Armin Mercier.
Thank you very much. I guess the discussion on whether or not we're going to build a garage should be laid to rest. We are going to build a garage. A vote was taken. As I said at the last meeting, I voted for the increase because I do not want the bonding of this garage to be placed on the taxpayers. Motion failed, and as we speak, the funding of that garage is presently on the taxpayers. However, it doesn't have to be that way. There's still some time here to come up with some creative way to get some revenues that will alleviate the burden on the tax rate. There are 3 motions connected to that. Councilor Rita Mercier's motion specifically says one item, but her dialogue on it mentioned a lot of others. And so it isn't necessarily a motion that would get approved as presented, because it most probably would fail as it's presented. Recognizing that and trying to think about moving forward on this, I really believe that the DPD, through the manager, should instruct the DPD and Mr. Carney to sit down and evaluate all of the motions that are being made tonight and ideas and suggestions, and come up with a recommendation from their point of view, a combination of or one area, and see if they can alleviate the taxpayers by coming up with a recommendation. It would be my feeling at this point that after we discuss the 3 motions in particular, that all 3 motions be referred to the DPD and to the parking garage director to evaluate what is being said here, and then have them come in with a recommendation that will alleviate that burden that's presently on the taxpayers. Maybe they will. They've heard a lot of suggestions from us. Maybe they're looking at it now, I don't know. But I really think that we should look forward and not backwards. We're going to build this garage. I don't think there's one city councilor who wants this burden on the tax rate or on the taxpayers. I really don't. And so it behooves the administration, the DPD, and the parking garage director to come up with some creative revenue ideas that are emanating from the council to see if that burden can be alleviated. So my suggestion would be, after all of the motions are discussed, that the ideas that are brought forward here, including the motions that Councilor Eileen Donoghue has and Councilor Elliott has, be referred to the manager and the DPD to come up with some suggestion that would keep this burden off the taxpayers. And that's just a suggestion.
That's an amended motion.
I would...
And I'd second that amended motion.
Well, I think we have to take them one at a time. So I would move in substitution on this particular motion that this matter be referred, along with hopefully others, to the DPD and the parking garage director for some sort of recommendation.
Seconded.
Motion and substitution to refer this matter to the manager for report and recommendation, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercier. Any further discussion on this, Councilor Milonazo?
Thank you. I will support the substitute motion, but could I also ask for, and we may have received it, Mr. Manager, so I apologize if we've already received it, but if we haven't, could we look at a pro forma analysis of income and expenses from the new garage? I mean, do we have $2.25 million at the end of the day to pay for the bond authorization that's been supported or voted by this council based upon projections of what income and what expenses we'll have on the 900-car garage? Because you're talking about 900 spaces that most likely at the end of the day will have shared use, meaning 1,800 users could actually use that garage, and at today's rate, what would the projected income and then the expenses be?
I think we have some of that information from that report that was done several years ago by a consultant, but we can try to get that updated for you, Council.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you.
Okay. Is there any objection to the substituted motion to refer the manager for report and recommendation? Okay. All those in favor of that say aye. Any opposed? That matter is approved. Councilor Elliott had requested his motion on this related topic be taken up at this time. Is there any objection to that?
Nope.
Okay, the motion, and what about Councilor Donoghue? Should we consider that as well?
I
Why don't we
think
do
we're-
Councilor Elliott's first? The city council requests the city manager meet with prospective developers in the jam area to partner with the city to pay for garage and report back in 2 weeks.
Second.
Second by Councilor Armin Mercia. Councilor Elliott.
Well, I think the motion speaks for itself, Mr. Mayor, and we've discussed it. It's all about how we're going to pay for it now, and I think I've said what I've had to say before, and I agree with the motion. I'd like to see a revised, pro forma. How much is left? I mean, I know what's left in there, but how much is this going to cost? Because we're not just talking about the $4.5 million. We're talking about the entire $28 million, and I don't disagree that this year we won't have the entire $2.25 million on the tax rate. There's got to be some bond anticipation notes that we've taken out while building it. However, my concern is the next 19 years. How are we going to pay for it? And we price people out of coming downtown and doing businesses. They're not going to come. Then again, it's back on the taxpayers. So I can't suggest enough that this doesn't make financial sense. And I hear time and time again in the private sector. The private sector would never let a loan out based on these conditions. And I think that's the frustrating part. I did say it earlier. We should have had this. This should have been all laid out before we voted to spend all this money. And now we've backed ourselves into a corner, and we're looking for ways to fund a parking garage when we were in very good fiscal condition. We collected all, we got to put a good parking plan in place. We improved the meters. We improved the conditions of the garage, the security, and I just feel that as much as I think we need a garage down there, this doesn't help. This doesn't help the entire plan. So that's the motion, to report back in a couple of weeks as we go into the next fiscal year to see what they say. I think these developers, knowing that we've already, that the garage is approved, is going to say, well, no. I mean, this is our plan, and I don't know what leverage we have, but I'll wait to hear back from the manager. Thank you.
Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a brief comment. As I stated, nobody has a crystal ball. Gasoline was $1.59 a gallon a year and a half ago. Who knew that the construction costs were going to rise? We didn't know that. Heating oil was $1.35 a year and a half ago. And if anyone thinks you can build a garage with 3 floors And after 10 years, put 2 more floors on, it's not gonna cost you more money than the original cost. You're a dreamer. Construction is going out of the out of sight, out of sight. And it's the heating oil, the gasoline, et cetera, throughout the entire country. And once again, 2 years ago, we decided we're gonna build a garage because the businesses up there needed it, wanted it, and asked for one. We took a vote to build one. We didn't push a magic button and say we're going to increase the cost by $5 million. None of us wanted to see that. There's not one councilor here that wanted to see that happen. But it did happen. Now we have to address it.
Councilor Donahue?
No.
Councilor Arman.
Is it my understanding, through to the manager, that this motion, once approved, will be placed on the table along with the one that was just approved?
Yeah.
As an alternative way of seeking?
Yes,
Is it
this
my
motion is
understanding?
actually...
So I don't need to substitute the thing?
No,
Okay.
this actually is to
Okay.
go to the manager
That's
for
fine.
report back.
Right.
All those in favor of the motion? Oh, Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do talk in our letter of March 3rd to the council from the planning department that under phase 2 of the RFQ regarding the Hamilton Canal District, that as we negotiate with the master developer, we're going to talk about contributions to meet other municipal needs. I'm just reading from the second page, which might include financial assistance dealing with the construction of municipal facilities within the project. So clearly, this parking garage, would be a municipal facility within the project. So, I mean, I do think that is something that the planning department has thought about and will probably entertain with the master developer. So I think over the next 2 weeks, when we deal with Councilor Elliott's motion, that should be looked at as well.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? That motion is approved. And the third motion on this topic by Councilor Donahue, request the City Council review the parking rate agreement with Middlesex Community College, seconded by
Second.
Councilor Arman Mercia, Councilor Donahue.
Thank you.
Could I offer an amendment before you provide? I'd like to have the same thing applied to the hotel. In other words, would you include the contract with the hotel also?
We don't get any money from the hotel. We
But
have,
there's a contract that weighs a certain amount of money, and I'm wondering if we should look at that also.
we can look
All
at,
right.
yeah.
All right.
When
Just-
does that contract expire?
Motion to
I
amend.
think it's like 99 years or something.
Yeah.
When we,
But I believe it's a deed restriction.
yeah.
Right.
When
You're right.
just to address Councilor Mercier's point, when we were looking at setting up the parking department, we did ask to look at all of the existing contracts, and the one with the hotel was pretty much unrestricted in terms of we don't get money, and I guess the restriction is that they're supposed to be using or being at a function or something at the hotel, but if there were a way of revisiting that, I agree with you. If there was some way of quantifying it, or if the hotel is somehow in breach of the agreement in any way, it would certainly be worthwhile revisiting. Just addressing my comments to the, not so much my position on the garage, but where do we stand now that we've committed ourselves to paying for something that we don't have the money for. In connection with that, when Mr. Carney was here last week, I did ask him whether Middlesex, and I mean, none of his recommendations included Middlesex Community College. His response was that their agreement with the city expires in January next of '07. Well, one thing struck me was when we were setting up the agreement, the department, at that time we didn't have any written agreement with Middlesex, and I guess we entered into a written agreement with Middlesex for a set price of $225,000 a year, according to what Mr. Carney told us. I was surprised that we weren't going to Middlesex to contribute to this, because based on the information I have, and I would like this in a form of a report as well, or it will be sent back if that's the wish, that everybody go back to the drawing board in terms of all of these recommendations. But at any rate, Middlesex uses somewhere in the vicinity of 1,000 spaces on a regular basis, and which is essentially more than a whole garage. And they're paying us right now about 16 cents an hour. We cannot afford to not bring Middlesex in and increase that rate. I mean, to park in the garage, I fully understand the history of our agreement with Middlesex. Middlesex has been a great partner with the city, has contributed to the revitalization of the downtown, but they're using 1,000 spaces, and it's important that we can't overlook the biggest user of the garage and give them a free pass. And if we were to raise that agreement to, let's say, 35 cents an hour or 50, it's still less than half of the going rate. So by no means am I suggesting that we raise them to the hourly rate that we're charging in the garage, because we do have a history. But I think if we raise Middlesex to somewhere, as I said, around 2.5 times what they're paying now, which will leave them far below the market rate, it goes a long way to close the gap that we're talking about. We could be looking at an additional $250,000 to $350,000 by that adjustment. And I think the time for that discussion is now, because Middlesex, I believe, like most state schools and state agencies, is on a July 1 fiscal year. And so it wouldn't be fair to say to them in January or in December, we're going to double your rates or 2.5 times your rate. So I think it's timely and appropriate to have the discussion, but I honestly believe we cannot afford to, especially now when we're building such an expensive garage, to not include contribution from Middlesex toward that. I think there was a time in the history when Middlesex, when the agreements were made and Middlesex came downtown and has, as I said, contributed, when the city had parking and available parking, and from everything I've heard, garages were empty in some respects. But that's not the case, and now we do have to build a garage to benefit the city and to benefit, quite frankly, the 1,000 people from Middlesex that park there every day, so that they can continue to park there. I mean, I think we've all seen the lines out the Lower Locks garage, which is a garage highly used by Middlesex and their students. And some days the lines are just down the block, just waiting to try and get a space in that garage. This garage, if built, will certainly alleviate that congestion and so forth. So I think if everybody puts their heads together, we can come up with a solution that will close that gap that we're looking at without breaking the bank, without putting it on the taxpayer, without raising the downtown parking in terms of residents or business, and try and just keep everybody afloat. I mean, that's probably not the right thing to say this week, but I mean, to just try and close that. So that's the intent of the motion. I mean, again, it's not suggesting in any way that Middlesex has somehow not been a good partner with the city. They've been a tremendous partner, but I think Middlesex would certainly see the need that the city's in right now, and creatively try and work together so that everybody benefits. So that's the intent of the motion.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, just briefly.
Yes.
I wasn't aware of the situation with Middlesex last week, but I did talk to Chuck Carney and reviewed some things. When I got here 6 years ago, Middlesex, I think, was paying $100,000 or $125,000 a year. That was done because city leaders wanted the community college in the downtown. They wanted people downtown. They wanted students downtown. Clearly, Middlesex, as we all know, attracts not the rich of the students. They're students who, for the most part, have families, work a couple of jobs, try to go to school at the same time, what have you. I don't know when it was, a couple of years ago, I think when we raised the rates, I had a discussion with Middlesex at that time, and that's when we had the agreement where they went from $125,000 to $225,000 several years ago. So clearly, Middlesex, nor did I ever say that Middlesex should not be part of this this situation as we go forth. As there are other entities in the cities that have contracts with the city, so clearly all contracts will be looked at and should be looked at. I'd be happy to send a letter to Jay Linehan tomorrow to try to begin discussions about a new rate for Middlesex, but I want to make it clear that Middlesex has in fact raised their rate dramatically since in the last few years, and I'll clearly have another talk with them again.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Donahue.
I understand that, Mr. Manager, and as I said in my comments, I think it was in '04 when we created the parking department that Middlesex signed that agreement, and they did increase from what they had been paying before by I think $100,000 was the increase. But make no mistake, they're paying 16 cents an hour now. I don't know what they were paying then, maybe 8 cents an hour. But at any rate, those are the numbers, and it's 1,000 spaces. So Middlesex has had a great history with the city working together, and I wouldn't expect anything less at this point. I don't think anyone's trying to be unreasonable, but to provide parking for 1,000 people is not an easy feat, and obviously now we see that it costs a lot of money. So that's the intent of the motion, but by no means was it suggesting that they haven't done what they've been asked. And they have, but it's just the reality is now economically it just doesn't make sense.
Councilor Broderick, then Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the motion. I think it's a good idea to look at it. I agree that we can't ask them to pay, I don't think we can ask them or should ask them to pay full freight. But I think before we go back to people and individuals and small businesses, we ought to look at it and find out what's reasonable. And Mr. Carney maybe can come up with a number that he thinks is reasonable in his research, but also it's been brought up before, and I think that I'd like to see Mr. Carney come up with some suggestions as how to address it, is I don't know if you want to call it security, but the validation system between the hotel and in Middlesex. I think there's some, everybody's kind of made light of walking in and handing them the ticket and getting validated, but I think it's a valid concern in that they're going to have people, the students at the at Middlesex, that may pay more because other people are abusing the system. So I think if we police it a little bit better, that will also help. But I agree that we have to look to our biggest users before, or at least at the same time, and it gives some lead time for Middlesex, and I think it's a fair thing to do, and I'd like to see what Mr. Carney comes up with for a suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to give my colleagues a little brief history of Middlesex Community College. Approximately 1991, 1992, Wang Laboratories went into bankruptcy. Not only were they leaving 1.25 million square feet of property on Industrial Avenue vacant and empty, but the new building downtown where they were going to have representatives from all over the world come in and be educated with the Wang computer, that was going to be empty too. And Middlesex Community College stepped to the plate, said, we will expand and we'll move downtown Lowell. And the city council at that time, Mr. Mayor, and the city manager was absolutely elated that someone would come forward and turn that building into something that's useful. And as we know, it has been extremely useful to the students who attend it. Middlesex Community College not only brought students downtown, but they've also contributed to writing millions of dollars of grants for the Lowell School Department. And I spoke to a representative at Middlesex Community College last week, and they indicated that there is a receptionist there. If there's a ticket validated, that person has to prove identity before the ticket is validated. So anyone who is saying that you validate it yourself, that's not so. Middlesex Community College has been a great asset, not only to the town of Bedford, but to the city of Lowell. And I agree that we'll send the motion to the city manager and let him discuss it with Mr. Linehan, but come up with ways and means of coming up with a mutual agreement. But Middlesex Community College, if they didn't come, Mr. Mayor, they didn't come to the city of Lowell, we'd have an empty parking garage. There'd be one less garage. They're filling up one of those voids. So the problem with being successful and moving forward, sometimes it creates obstacles as well. But Middlesex Community College has been a great asset to the city and to the region. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Any opposed? The motion's adopted. Next motion is by Councilor Elliott. Request the city council vote to initiate rebid of the towing contracts, seconded by Councilor Ramirez. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just following up on the Inspector General report that we received recently, and then it was sent, the report was sent to the city solicitor, who did report back on implementing those recommendations. And what I thought the major recommendation was to rebid the contracts according to the Inspector General. And that's what I'm bringing forward tonight. And I understand some of the points in the opinion from the solicitor that if the city did rebid the tow contracts and throw them out, that the individuals would be allowed an opportunity to a name clearing hearing, because the implication is that there is collusion associated with these bids. And you know, if you look at the Inspector General's report, the bids submitted, $1, $1, $3, $7, $7, $10, $1.50. That makes some sense. And then there were some other bids of $22 and $30. But I just want to recap this whole issue and how it got here. And it was from the police department, by the way, who came to us a year and a half ago and suggested that we raise the administrative fee because the city is losing money with the towing contract. And the city loses money because we have to process all the paperwork. We send officers to the scene. We're paying them overtime. There are other costs associated sometimes with waiting around for a tow truck to come, and the nature of the accident and things of that nature. There was a $10 administrative fee applied on top of the tow fee of $90, $20 storage fee, and then the $10 administrative fee. So this came to the Finance Subcommittee, and the thought was, how can we get more money back, in my opinion, and not just tag it on top of, you know, the person that just got their car towed. So the idea was, I wanted to make it competitive. I wanted to put it on above board. I wanted to advertise it in the newspaper, put together an a request for information, and that's what we did. And the purpose of it was to have the tow companies who want to do business in the city, and it's big business, and that's fine. I don't begrudge anybody running their business in the city. They've done it for many years, but I don't want to have the city, we've heard on the backs of the taxpayers again. This is an issue where it's costing the city money, so let's get some money back for the city. And it's a revenue sharing approach. It's completely legal. The law department gave us opinions on it, and that's what I thought we should do. I thought it was a way to get money back. So the Inspector General reviewed the issues, and we got $1 back from most of the companies that were awarded, or $1 and some change, and they thought that there was some collusion there. I don't know, but what I do know is the city didn't do anything wrong, and I bring this issue back because we're not getting money back now, and I think that maybe we should go out and rebid the contract. I don't think that we didn't do anything wrong. The Inspector General said the city did nothing wrong. So let's go back to the drawing board. Let's get some money back to the city, because it's still costing us money. And just to give folks at home an idea of what we're talking about, one of the zones last year, Zone 5, had 1,500 tows. and you can do the math, if you can just average $100, that's a lot of money. Zone 6 was $16.50. Now, these are just tows from the city, and, you know, contractors, tow companies have their own accounts, so and that's fine. It's a good business. I just want to get money back to the city. We're looking for revenue. We're talking about a tight fiscal year. I know it takes a little bit of time to, you know, to rebid this and go out and get the contracts in place, but I think, you know, time is of the essence, and let's go forward with this. There's some legal issues that we need to look at. Perhaps we do. I don't want to jeopardize nor generate more legal issues, legal cases against the city. Maybe that needs to be discussed a little bit further. According to the report, it does make some sense, but I'm not a lawyer, so I'll yield the floor to my colleagues. But my point was to put it above board, give everybody a chance to compete, and award it to the highest bidders that are going to give money back to the city. So that was the motion.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Councilor Ramirez, and then Councilor Donahue had her hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I support the intentions of Councilor Elliott. I think the issue here is trying to get the best deal for the city, and I had a question for Mr. Fenton, if I may. Mr. Fenton, I'm sure you're familiar with the contract, and there are a couple of sections in the contract that specifically say that the city may terminate the contracts with or without cause. And I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit in terms of what liability, if any, that opens the city up to. It seems to me that that may give the impression to those that get involved that they have no rights in terms of bringing the city into court if the contract is terminated. But I was wondering if you could give me a little bit of a historical perspective on times and occasions where contractors have sued the city, where the city has terminated it without cause or with cause. I know that my impression from that would be that we can terminate those today, and then we would not be opening up ourselves to liability, and therefore we could pursue much better deals for the city, as Councilor Elliott suggested. I was wondering if you could respond.
Mr. Fenton?
Yes, thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. With respect to the language that you referred to, namely that the city can terminate the contract with or without cause, is not uncommon language in city contracts. And as you say, it does, and the words speak for themselves with respect to being able to terminate without cause. However, I think the solicitor in her report indicated reasons why that should not be exercised. Namely that there was an existing case that's under appeal brought by the Towing Association, which might become moot in the event that the contracts are terminated. We won the case in the lower level, which basically said that the contracts were in conformity with the law. They had been issued. They were fair and equal. That was a decision of the Superior Court in relation to the Towing Association suit. They've appealed that to the appeals court, and that's pending. We enjoy the benefit of that decision at this point and would not want to jeopardize it by making it become moot if we terminated the contract. And I think that's what the solicitor referred to in her report to you. In addition, she cited other reasons, one of which was that the question of the opportunity to be heard in the event that the character of the association is challenged. The third reason I think that she gave was that some of the issues that were raised in the association's case, namely that it did not constitute an unlawful tax and issues of that. We enjoy that benefit. And again, coming back to what I said initially, namely that at this point, certainly we would not recommend terminating the contract and proceeding to put it out for bid, at least until the other case is determined.
And do you have any idea when that may?
Oh, well, you being a lawyer, you know that appeals to the appeals court don't come up the day after you file them, so I couldn't really estimate. I'm sure it'd be a matter of probably several months.
Oh, and I'm sensitive to the legal implications to the city. That I certainly am. However, if the city chose to terminate the contract solely on the idea that we wanted a better deal, that would certainly not trigger the second reason that she gave in her memorandum. Would that be accurate?
The second reason being that, you mean the tax issue? Or?
No, I think she alluded to character hearings or reputable.
Right. Well, that, of course, whether that be, an issue or not, there's nothing to say that they can't, in turn, raise the issue, and it may provoke litigation. Whether or not that litigation would prevail, of course, is something that we couldn't, as we sit here, give a ironclad opinion on, certainly.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Solicitor.
Okay, Councilor Donahue?
Thank you. If there's no objection by the maker of the motion, I would move that we send the the motion and the solicitor's responses to the Public Safety Subcommittee. I think this is a complex question that's been raised. Attorney Fenton has alluded to a number of things that the solicitor has advised us. I think there are concerns, in terms of, certainly the IG's report, but what other options do we have, and if we can weigh those, and financially, what makes the best sense, because the intent, well, of course, you don't want collusion, but the intent of the motion is to get a better deal for the city and make sure that the city's getting what it can. So I think it would be appropriate to have the solicitor come to a subcommittee so that we could discuss all of these avenues and come up with what's, in the long run, the best for the city. If there's no objection, I would do that by way of an amendment or...
Second.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any objection
All
to
right,
that.
so motion by Councilor Donahue to refer this matter to this Public Safety Subcommittee for a report, and further hearing, report, and recommendation, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercier. Councilor Broderick's had his hand up for a while.
Thank you. I was falling asleep. I was actually going to make that substitute motion, but I also think that if we're going to have this meeting with the city solicitor, that maybe we should have someone from the police department. Is it Captain Taylor, whoever is that makes these decisions and recommendations? Because
Officer
Meehan.
Lieutenant, I think he's Lieutenant Meehan.
Maybe we should have someone from the police department participate, because it's my understanding the city doesn't really, the manager's office doesn't do anything in this process other than take the recommendations from the police department. Again, I think it's been voiced, but my concern in jumping in a rebid right now would be that we're looking at 6 or 7 months left on the contracts. We're going to have to send it out to rebid. That may take a couple of months. We're going to potentially open ourselves up to several counts of litigation. And also, what do we do in the meantime? Do we leave the contracts in place? It doesn't seem to me legally to make a whole lot of sense, where I think the real concern is that we're going to make sure, hopefully, or find out how to make sure that we don't have a question of collusion. And I don't think we want to take one person's report and jump in necessarily for a 6-month period when we all know we can use any found and increased revenue source. I think that it's something that if we do it carefully, we can prevent in the future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Rita Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I firmly think, in my opinion, that this should go out for rebid. But having said that, and listened to the advice of the city solicitor, I certainly don't want to open anybody in the city up to any liability through a suit. So that's a good idea to refer it to the subcommittee. And there is a lot of questions still remains. For example, if a towing company decided that they gave up their bid and they went away and someone took over, if they bid, let's say, $20 a car, does the new contractor, towing contractor, have to live up to what the contract says or what they said? So there's question there. I don't know what the answer would be. I want to question as well contracts given out by location. There's a few things that need to be discussed, and I think this is the way to do it, to clear the air and have everything out in the open, and I think that's a good way to do it to the subcommittee.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion as amended, say aye. Any opposed? Oh, Councilor Caulfield?
Yeah, very briefly, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, when do the contracts expire? Do you know? Would you know offhand?
I believe it's December 31st this year.
Okay, so, I wouldn't support the motion as presented this evening. I think it's wise to have it before the Public Safety Subcommittee with the Law Department. And the Inspector General said he thinks there was collusion. I'm not going to open up the city to litigation. In closing, one of the tow contractors that offered the city a large amount of money for each tow, I believe was terminated by the Lowell Police Department. Is that so, Mr.? So much for you. And you know, you're looking at contractors coming into the city and donating money back to the city. Well, get a large field out there. People who plow our streets in the winter and so forth. It's a lot of people you could look at. You know, so where are we going with this? That's what I'd like to bring up.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion as amended, say aye. Any opposed? The motion's approved. Next motion is by Councilor Elliott. The City Council requests the city manager provide an itemized list of revenue to be used in the FY07 budget, including all special revenue account and enterprise funds with balances in those accounts. Seconded by Councilor Broderick. Councilor Elliott.
I know we're going into the budget season, Mr. Manager, and rather than wait till we get the budget, I just wanted to request that all the line items, and there's usually, you know, between 30 and 40 that go into local receipts in the budget. I'm sorry. If we can just, as part of the budget, before we get into the, you know, before you present it, can I just get a list of those items and the projections you used into that revenue, particularly the local receipts, where, you know, I think that's where the, you know, the devil is in the details, as well as available funds. I know what the tax levy is and what our local aid is, but, you know, there's usually around 30 items of permits and fees and licenses and things of that, what you're using for those revenue projections, so we can have another set of eyes look at them. And not that my crystal ball is any clearer than anyone else's, but I just think it's important as part of the budget process to take a look at those.
As soon as we get them done, we'll get them to you, Council.
Thank you.
Councilor Broderick.
I think that's a great motion. I think it's perfect timing, as we see with the parking the fund, and some confusion as to whether that's all of it's applied to the budget or just the portion, the 500, or is it 300. I think that it's good timing, and hopefully it can help clarify that issue in particular. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? The motion's approved. Next motion by Councilor Elliott. The City Council requests the city manager have the proper department address code violations at 17 Edward Street. Seconded by Councilor Milonazo. Councilor Elliott.
The city are in the process of addressing Edward Street. It's a piece of property a gentleman owns. You know, I get many or several complaints from people going to use the soccer field and on Edward Street, and there's 400, 500, 600 every weekend. So the building, health, fire, they have been over there. So I'd like the motion to stay on the agenda just to get a report back. But they were over there Friday, and I was over there, and they are addressing the violations. It's, you know, the individuals had a lot of stuff in that property, and I understand, you know, his concerns. I actually spoke to the gentleman, and we agreed to disagree, but, you know, we expect people to comply with, throughout the city, to maintain their property and to comply with the zoning and building and health conditions, and this individual has to do it too, so thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anything further? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? The motion is approved. Councilor Broderick had to step out for a minute. I want to take Councilor Caulfield's motion next. If there's no objection, Councilor Caulfield, City Council requests the city manager have the law department draw the proper vote to name the corner of South Walker and Shaw Streets for Paul and Dominic Malloy, seconded by Councilor Milonazo. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Paul Francis Malloy served this country with pride and distinction in the United States Navy during the Second World War. Seaman First Class, entered the service March 22nd, 1943 to February of 1946. Served on the U.S. Henry and also the USS Stephen F. Austin. The awards were World War II Victory Medal, European, African, Middle Eastern Theater Medal, American Theater Medal, Asiatic Pacific Theater Medal. Dominic F. Malloy served his country with pride and distinction in the United States Army as a corporal, entered the service February 22nd, 1951 to February 22nd, 1953, served with the 6th Army. The family would be very honored, Mr. Mayor, if the city could name this corner after these two fine gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? The motion is approved. Next motion by Councilor Broderick. City Council requests the city manager supply the City Council with a copy of the Kelly and Ryan contract as well as a report on monies collected by and fees paid under the contract. Seconded by Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This, excuse me, I think we all heard about it last week. It was on the radio and is from a union side, but in ways of trying to find more revenue or decrease expenses, however you want to look at it. It was brought to my and I think everybody, all the other council's attention that a contract to collect fines and fees, excise or parking and whatnot, and it is I guess an outsourcing servicing contract. So I thought it would be a good idea to find out what it is and get a copy of it and see what we've actually collected. I don't know if that's what Councilor Elliott referred to earlier, the 382,000 or whatever, but some of the numbers I was given, I don't know if they're accurate or not, so I thought it'd be a good idea to get the information. I know the other councils have heard had it mentioned to them as well, so I thought we could straighten it out. And maybe it's a way, if jobs weren't cut, that we can have city employees do it rather than paying collection fees. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, can you give us, I'm not too familiar with what this contract is and what it's doing and what it replaced.
It doesn't replace anything, Councilor. What we've been looking for over the last year or so was ways to try to recoup mostly past monies that have gone uncollected. No one's fault. I mean, excise taxes, parking fines, those types of things have added. You know, they've added up over the years. I mean, there's $3.5 million that we project is out there that needs to be collected. The city of Lowell is one of the few cities in the Commonwealth that does not use an outside service to help us, and so we went through an RFP process. This is this firm, I believe, is the biggest firm in the Commonwealth. They do, I forget how many cities and towns, but a large number of them. They are clearly, in the estimation of the committee, that the selection committee, the best firm to do this type of thing. We brought them on board. There were some issues with the union. I think we resolved those issues. Clearly, my purpose from the very beginning was not to lose any union work to this contract, and the union knows that. We're working with the union, but they're getting going now. I don't know how much money they've collected as of now, but we can clearly get you that information. Clearly get you a copy of the contract.
So, city workers were collecting these before, whether at the treasurer's office, and is that where they'd hire a constable to go out and collect excise, or?
My understanding is the city workers, for whatever reason, could only go so far, and they were getting behind. And again, I'm certainly not blaming anyone, but they were getting behind and not able to go to take the steps that this firm has the capability to go after. Like they have an office at the registry and those types of things. So it's a lot more centralized. It makes a lot more sense. Like I say, we're one of the few cities in the Commonwealth that wasn't doing it. So now, we're doing it, and we're hoping that obviously there's a lot of money out there that we can recoup.
Yeah, I agree. So there's 3.5. What percentage do they take? Or is it fee, or is it hourly, or what is it?
I don't think they take any of the 3.5. I think that there are fees. If you go to one posting, it's some fee. If you go to another posting, it's another fee, depending on how long people wait. And I think that's what this company gets, is those fees above and beyond what's owed the city. State mandate.
Okay. I thank you for the explanation. I really wasn't familiar with any of this. I look forward to the report, but it's nice to let people know who are watching at home, rather than wait for a report that Councilor Mercy had a motion last week. Sometimes they don't come back here, so appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilor Donahue?
Thank you. This was the first I heard about this contract. So in addition to the contract, can we get a report as to who in the city was doing this work? And, not their names, but what positions were doing it. I mean, this strikes me as somewhat of a policy change. And, at one point we had a big backlog, this is going back several years, in the treasurer's office for tax title, for, bringing things to tax title. And we hired an employee to do it at the time, because it was cost effective to process those tax title properties and sell them, and it ended up paying for itself. In other words, the position, the individual who did the tax title work, so we created a position to do it and to clean up the backlog. I guess I'm just wondering, doesn't that make some sense? So I would like to know who's doing the work. If not, does it make sense to have someone do it? Because I'll look forward to getting the report, but or a copy of the contract. But a lot of times those fees, for instance, if you don't pay a ticket $10 within so many days, and those are the ones, the backlog, I suppose, if they go for a long time, the fees are enormous. I mean, so your $10 ticket could end up costing you $100 by the time penalty and interest and so forth. So, and now, where the registry, like if you want to renew your license or you want to renew your registration, you can't do it unless you go pay your tickets. And so it's almost like the registry is forcing people back to the source. So, anyway, it just seems that if it's $3.5 million or something out there, I'd just be curious how much we're giving away, and would it be more cost effective to hire someone to do it in-house, rather than paying a firm to take a cut? So I'll look forward to the report, but if we can know the city side as well as the contract side.
Councilor Milanazzo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Picking up on what Councilor Donahue said, is our MIS department tied into the Registry of Deeds, meaning that if I owe a fine here in the city and I don't pay it, can I renew my license, or can't I at this point?
Well, clearly something was happening, Councilor, because we're big in the hole. So clearly these people are not driving around with licenses. Clearly there was some, and has been some disconnect. That's why we sought this type of an approach towards it.
Okay.
I mean, if that were the case, then clearly nobody would be able to, after 3 years or 5 years or whatever, no one would be able to renew their license or their registration.
Right.
That's clearly happening. Some of these things go back to 1988 that have gone uncollected. Okay. So we're getting aggressive with it, and we are getting aggressive, and we think this is the right way to go. And again, it's the way that just about every city does it, and most cities and towns.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick? No? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? Motion's approved. Next motion is by Councilor Broderick. The City Council requests the City Manager contact UMass Lowell regarding locating the Nanotechnology Center on the Hamilton Canal site and report back in 2 weeks. Seconded by Councilor Elliott. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is obviously a simple motion. We had a meeting on the Nanotechnology Center, and I guess a presentation by the university as to what it is, nanotechnology. and some of the potentials for it. And in my view, I've stated this a number of times here on the floor, that I think that site, the best use would be commercial. I know it's not easy to bring in a commercial base or commercial tenants, and I think the university came to the meeting with some interest, or at least to have their eyes and ears open as to bringing the Nanotechnology Center here, or there to the Hamilton Canal District. And I'd like to see if we could continue those discussions. And I think if we get them there, then we're not going to have to worry about marketing. I think it's going to market itself. I just don't know if that's been done to date, and I'd like to see something done on that, so we can, as we get ready for an RFQ, as Councilor Milanazzo made a motion last week, to get a draft. I think that if we have some idea as to what the university's plans or their openness to the concept, we could look at the RFQ with that in mind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone further? Councilor Donahue?
Well, with the Concord River flooding, would they think of moving the courthouse too after, I mean, I don't know where do we stand on that? Do we know, or have they chosen the site as their funding in the budget as far as the judicial center?
My understanding is it's a full go. I don't know exactly where it stands as far as the RFP that DCAM will be putting out, because they're doing it all. We have nothing to do with it at this point, really.
Yeah.
But one thing that should be made clear: their site, where they're going to site the courthouse, is up on East Merrimack Street. It's
Yeah.
not down towards the water. So
Right.
the flooding that happened, the 70-year flood, would not, I don't think, interfere with it. It might make them a little more nervous, but I don't think it would interfere with it.
Well, if, you know, I may say facetiously, except that, you know, sometimes that kind of flood may change plans, but.
Councilor Caulfield?
I'm not going to discuss this issue. Just before you adjourn, I just wanted to...
Well, let's vote the motion, then.
Yeah.
All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? Motion's adopted. Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I neglected to thank, first of all, Governor Romney for coming in to our city, and he visited Haverhill and Lawrence and in many areas throughout the state, but declaring a state of emergency in the state, and Congressman Marty Meehan. And Mr. Manager, many people in Pawtuckaville, Centerville, Middlesex Village, my neighborhood, suffered extreme losses because of the flooding, and it's just an act of God. You're just something you can't help. But the federal funding, I'm concerned about that. And did the governor or the congressman indicate that they're going to apply for federal funding for the states to assist and help people who were flooded out of their homes?
Councilor, I think there's some FEMA guidelines were starting to come out today, but clearly they've got some timetables on there that are probably unmeetable, since we don't know the scope of any damage.
Yep.
The water hasn't receded yet. So
No, yeah.
obviously we're working with all the city agencies to get that information together, and we will put all that information together as soon as possible,
Yeah.
and get it off to the proper authorities.
And not only residents, but businesses as well were affected. I know the Dunkin' Donuts on the Pawtucket Boulevard is just completely underwater.
Clearly, any residences or business that have suffered financially need to document it. They need to take pictures. They need to document their losses. They need to do, whatever it is, so that they can have this months from now, or whenever this happens, so they can go back and document what really happened.
Is there some way of getting that out through the media?
Well, I've got an announcement
Okay.
to make, actually. Thank you.
But once again, in behalf of the entire council, the administration, and everyone, Mr. Mayor, everyone who addressed this issue, from Sunday, especially TJ, and all the city employees, an outstanding job, went above and beyond, and I was proud of the city employees. Thank you.
Councilor, the manager has one more announcement to make, but if I could just follow up, I can tell you that I did meet with the governor, lieutenant governor, and Congressman Meehan when they came. I can tell you they were very impressed with what they saw by way of response times and the plan the city had in place. The manager does have some related announcements to make on that. Before I recognize him, I just like people to know we are going to be open for school tomorrow, and I wanted to announce that at the start of the meeting. I forgot to do that, but as we stand right now, school is going to be open tomorrow in the city of Lowell. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very briefly, we have established 3 neighborhood assistance centers, one at the UMass North Campus parking lot, one at the UMass South Campus parking lot, and one at the Old Ferry Road fire station. What we will have some city services there. They're open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Basically for residents, for people, for residents, is that right? Yeah, residents. To go, they can pick up inspection forms from the building department, the electric department, and other city services. Anybody who wants to volunteer, they can call the number on the website. The second announcement is the FEMA information forms, which you talked about, Councilor, will be available on the website beginning midnight tonight. And I think that's important for people to look at that, to get whatever information they can, and to begin that process. There obviously is no guarantee of any funds, but clearly people, I think, that have been harmed by this should go forth and look at those forms and begin to gather the information necessary. Thank you.
Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, for the benefit of those people who don't have a computer, is there some way we could get that into the Lowell Sun with some information so people would know exactly where to go, what to do, and so
Yeah,
forth?
we'll have those forms at the front desk of Lowell Police Department as well. And after we get this information collected, FEMA representatives will be in the community looking at those forms.
Yeah.
I just want to stress, there's no guarantee for reimbursements for damage, but it's important to get this information in any ways to start that process, just in case. We're going to try to do it. I know Congressman was here. He said he'd step up to the plate for that, and hopefully we'll be able to get...
I just don't want to see some people miss, if there's a way of getting funding, to miss out on that funding because they don't have a computer, or they didn't know about it.
They can clearly contact our office, and we'll get the forms out to them. The police station will have them.
Okay.
We'll try to make them as readily available as possible.
And I see Michael writing over there, so hopefully he's going to put it in the story. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Armin Mercier.
I wonder if I could suspend the rules just to give you an abbreviated report of a report I've asked that we've received. Basically is what I wanted to do last week on the agenda, but it was suggested we could do it on the suspension of the rules. Very abbreviated report on Father Garrett's statue.
Motion to suspend the rules by Councilor Armin Mercier, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercier. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, Councilor Armin Mercier.
Thank you. You all received last week in your packet a report from the Historic Board based on a motion that was approved by this council regarding Father Garrett's statue, which just sits on that unique site on Merrimack Street, and it clearly indicates in here that it is protected by the Historic Board's regulations. And just very briefly, the reason why I brought this forward, because there was some discussion in the community about what happens with this statue, where is it going now that it's going to the private sector. And the Historic Board has made it clear that they've notified the Archdiocese that it is protected under the vote that was taken in 2004, placing the statue as well as that church in the Historic District. And just very briefly, Father Garret Monument, he was a seminal figure in the establishment of Lowell's French-Canadian community. According to local French-Canadian historical references, his death in 1895 stunned the city, and a public subscription drive was begun to erect a suitable memorial. A committee comprised of Lowell's French, Irish, and Yankee citizens raised $8,000, and a commission to renowned sculptor Louis Hebert to create the monument. And the bronze statue was unveiled in front of the church on October 22, 1896, before 20,000 people. So I want to thank the Historic Board for pursuing this further. I think there was some misunderstanding. I've had an awful lot of calls from people who would like to see it stay there, particularly now that it's protected. And the person who has a purchase or sale agreement said absolutely no question at all. He would like to keep it there, and he would maintain it, and I think it's an essential figure in the acre. And I want to thank the Historic Board for pursuing this further, and I wanted to bring this motion forward so that that report be included in our minutes. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. Motion to adjourn by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Elliott. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The meeting stands adjourned.